গাতে হে ব্রজে বসি হরিনাম গুরুদেব বড় কৃপা করি কোদবন মাঝে গোদ্রমে দিয়াছ স্থান গুরুদেব বড় কৃপা করি কোদবন মাঝে কিন্তু কবে প্রভু যোগ্যতায়ার পিবে এ দশের দয়া করি
কিন্তু কবে প্রভু যোগ্যতার পিবে এ দশের দয়া করি
চিত্ত স্থির হবে সকল সহিব একান্তে বজিব হরি একান্তে বজিব হরি চিত্ত স্থির হবে সকল সহিব একান্তে বজিব হরি একান্তে বজিব শেষব যৌবনে জড় সুখ সঙ্গে অভ্যাস হইল মন্দ নিজ কর্ম দোষে এ দেহ হইল ভজনের প্রতিবন্ধ ভজনের প্রতিবন্ধ বার্ধক্যে কোন পঞ্চরোগে হত কে মনে বজিব বল কান্দিয়া কান্দিয়া তোমার চরণে পদিয়াছে সুরি বল গুরুদেব বোধ কৃপা করি বোধবন মাঝে গোদ্রমে দিয়াছ স্থান দিলা মোরে এ ব্রজে বসি অগ দিলা মোরে ব্রজে বসি হরি নাম করো গান হরি নাম করো গান দিলা মোরে ব্রজে বসি হরি নাম করো জয় গুরুদেবা জয় গুরুদেবা গুরুদেবা জয় 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 গুরুদেবা गुरु परंपरा गुरु परंपरा गुरु परंपरा गुरु परंपरा Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Raman Radha Raman Radhe. Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol. Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol. Shri Gurudeva ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Smastu Rupanu Gauri Guru Varga ki jai, Gaur-Nityananda Prabhu ki jai, Sarparshad Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shradhara Manju ki jai, Nitai Gaur Pramanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, welcome Bimal Prabhu. So today we're going to start learning the Catuh-sloki Bhagavatam. We did the last 4 days, we learned Catuh-sloki Bhagavad Gita, and we heard a nice recap yesterday. And we've also been reading from the article of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur about the Society of Sri Gauranga. So we'll finish that today, unless we get, it's been a nice discussion every day, going deeper and deeper into different parts of this topic. So we will jump right in. I'll share my screen so everyone can read along. Welcome to everyone who's joining online. And we're back here at Sri Bhaktivinoda Dham Ashram in New York. You can see Guru Maharaj and Thakurji just on the side behind. All right, so we're going to read from chapter 9 of Canto 2, the cosmic manifestation. You can have it on your phone if you like, or you can use the Bhagavatam set. We're going to just set the tone a little bit and then learn the verse. But before we learn the verse, we're going to discuss it and learn it at the end, so that when we're learning it, it becomes easier to memorize also, because we've already become very familiar with it and the words and the meanings. I'm not going to read this whole chapter, the translations, but I'm just going to kind of set the stage. You can see it's a fairly medium-sized chapter. Basically, this is discussion between the Supreme Lord, Narayan, personality of Godhead, the first created being, Lord Brahma, his son. So it's described that this is a narrative. Sukadeva Goswami is saying, "O king," verse 1, translation, "unless one is influenced by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there's no meaning to the relationship of the pure soul in pure consciousness within the material body. That relationship is just like a dreamer's seeing his own body working." Wow, I don't know how we're going to get to the actual verse. This is such a deep statement just to start with. Sukadeva Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj, unless one is, let's look at the Sanskrit. Atma mayam riti rajan parashyanu bhavatmanaha na gate tartha sambandha swapna drashtur ivanjasa. Remember, I've been kind of mentioning that a few times, and everyone's like, you're just using some kind of Plato, Greek philosophy, but this is actually, they say imitation is the best form of flattery, but a lot of the European philosophers, you could say, imitated, or you could say plagiarized without always crediting their sources, a lot of the Vedic wisdom. Not necessarily this case, but a lot of the times. So Sukadeva Goswami says, Atma Mayam Rite Rajan. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, his energy, Rite Rajan, without that, O king, Parasya, the pure soul, Anubhava Atmana, of the purely conscious, na, never, Gateta, it can so happen, Artha, meaning, Sambandha, relation with the material body, Swapna, dream, Drastu, seer, Iva, like Anjasa, completely. So this is something that Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita also. When we come under the higher potency energy of the Lord, Yogamaya Shakti, at that time we are freed from Maya, lower energy. And how do we come under the higher energy? By surrendering to the Lord. Mayam etam tarantite, how? Mam evaye prapadyante, by surrendering unto Krishna prapadyante. Otherwise, life is just like a dream while we're sleeping, because the soul is asleep, meaning the soul is not acting in its true reality. That's what sleep is. When you're dreaming at night, your body is not doing the things that you're dreaming of. And so you say it's a dream. So the soul has a spiritual body, and because that spiritual body is not doing the real action, it's just like a dream. How do we, when you're in a dream, you're laying on your bed and you're dreaming that you're this king, or that you're this being chased by this demon, either a fantasy or a nightmare, usually, or some kind of subconscious desire or fear or anxiety. And so you're going through this subconscious reality, but it's not really, you wouldn't say when you wake up, the things that happen in the dream didn't happen to you necessarily. Affects your consciousness somewhat, but it's not like it's happening to you, the self. So in the same way, the soul is described to be like a dreamer in the body, seeing his own body working. The relationship with the material body, it's that of a dreamer seeing his own body working. Prabhupada says in the purport, the spiritual soul is distinct from the material conception of his life. But he is absorbed in such a material conception because of being influenced by the external energy of the Lord called Atma Maya. So anyhow, I don't want to get, because we could easily talk about just that for the whole class, but we want to go forward to the verse and memorize it. Text 2. The illusioned living entity appears in so many forms offered by the external energy of the Lord. While enjoying in the modes of material nature, the encaged living entity misconceives, thinking in terms of I and mine. As soon as the living entity becomes situated in his constitutional glory and begins to enjoy the transcendence beyond time and material energy, he at once gives up the two misconceptions of life, I and mine, and thus becomes fully manifested as the pure self. O King, the personality of Godhead, being very much pleased with Lord Brahma because of his non-deceptive penance in Bhakti Yoga, presented his eternal and transcendental form before Brahma. And that is the objective goal for purifying the conditioned soul. So pleased with the penance of Brahma. This is describing the creation of the universe that time, and how Brahma appeared and he was looking in all directions. It was all darkness. And then he did tapa, austerity and penance for great amount of celestial time. Then afterward, the Lord, being pleased with him, appeared before him in his true form, showing that in the Bible, it says God made man after his own image. An image means a form, but yet people say God is formless. In the Quran, it says, In Allah kalakame suratihi. Similar statement of God creates man after his own image. So what is an image? An image is like a 2D version of a three-dimensional form. Like an image, like a picture. A painting, you see the characters in 2 dimensions, but really they're 3-dimensional beings. The image means the form. So the Lord has a form, and just as the living entity must have a form. So because we have false ego, we think all ego is bad. We hear this, but pure ego is good. Negative energy has a positive side. Just because there's negative energy doesn't mean there's not a positive energy. Oh, false ego is bad, that's negative. But what? Then there's nothing positive. Mukti, people say, oh, freedom from everything. That's like the state in between good and bad. But we want to go towards what's good, not just negate our existence. So the Lord appeared in his form, and Lord Brahma was in his own form, seeing that form of the Lord. Lord Brahma, the first spiritual master. So we are in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, this lineage coming from Brahma, the first spiritual master. But who is his master? Shri Krishna. So therefore, Krishna is Adi Guru for all sampradayas, for all time. But Lord Brahma in this world, he is the Adi Guru, first spiritual master, supreme in the universe. So it's going back now before this. Could not trace out the source of his lotus seat. He was sitting on a lotus. And while thinking of creating the material world, he could not understand the proper direction for such creative work, nor could he find out the process for such creation. While thus engaged in thinking in the water, Brahma heard twice from nearby 2 syllables joined together. In the Bible, it also says, before there was light, before there was creation, there was darkness and there was water, and the spirit moved on the waters of the deep. So it shows how a lot of these traditions come from similar metaphysical backgrounds of the kind of ontological source of creation. In more simplistic terms or more poetic terms or more detailed terms. Sanskrit in general is a very detail specific language and philosophy. And other traditions, sometimes they're more poetic and allegorical and mysterious. And sometimes, you know, the more mystery you add, the more people follow something, because when it's not defined too specifically, then you're not turned off by something very specific. Like it can appeal to many different broad spectrum of people. But the Bhagavatam is very specific, and our Guru Varga says we should take it literally. It's not metaphorical. While thus engaged in thinking in the water, Brahma heard twice from nearby 2 syllables joined together. Who knows those 2 syllables? Tapa, perform austerities. It says specifically, one of the syllables was taken from the 16th and the other from the 21st of the Sparsha alphabets, and both joined to become the wealth of the renounced order of life. So Vrindavan Prabhu, this is your wealth. You're a wealthy man. What is your wealth? Tapa. We were hearing from Achyutananda Prabhu about tapa, how powerful it is. People perform tapya and achieve whatever you desire, mystic siddhis, wealth, sovereignty over the world, kingdom of heaven, or liberation. Tapa.
Prabhupada said, austerity is chanting the whole name.
Jai. For the devotees, everything is in support of bhakti. We don't want Gyan Vairagya to cover bhakti. So, when Brahma heard the sound, he tried to find the speaker, searching on all sides, but he was unable to find anyone besides himself. He thus thought it wise to sit down on his lotus seat firmly and give his attention to the execution of penance as he was instructed. Sometimes like a child, you know, he'll like looks around to like cause, you know, kind of mischief or be externally engaged. But when there's no external stimulation, that eventually just has to sit down. So Brahma is like this newborn baby in this infinite universe of potentiality, waiting to be discovered and born. But he hears the sound. He wanted to create. He was ready to create. He had that vasana, that desire from within. Now I am supposed to create from his impressions of past lives. But how to do it? Oftentimes we think, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, I need to create this, I need to do this, I need to achieve that. And so we run around in all directions trying to do it, not realizing that how do you want to achieve something? Sit down, be still, meditate, and do penance. when realization dawns, then you can become active with pure intelligence. Then you can become busy intelligent, not a busy fool. So therefore, we perform penance. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he sat for 9 years, chanted 3 lakhs Harinam every day. 1 billion names of the holy name, penance. This is tapa. Then Mahaprabhu appeared, the Guru Varga appeared. All the associates of the Lord appeared and blessed him and instructed him. Now you should preach, establish in this world, society of Sri Gauranga. And then he began. He was doing some work, preaching and helping in publication. He was active, but his primary activity was his bhajan, his penance, his austerity. And this is the wealth of those in the renounced order of life. There's a verse about who is qualified to be renounced in the Bhagavatam. Who is qualified, you could say, because we're talking about this. It's actually a point that we didn't bring up yesterday. We were talking on the Zoom about being a monk or getting married. What's better? Not what's better, but because both are good in their own. We were talking about this point that each has it's not a blanket thing for everyone. According to one's adhikar, one should engage in what is beneficial for oneself, particularly. But we're talking about these like different ideas around whether to be a monk or, and we heard a lot of different insights. But one of the things that's very important is this verse of the Bhagavatam that says, very important verse for who is qualified to be in the renounced order. Tavat karmani kurvita na nirvidyeta yavata mat kata shravana dovai shraddhayavana jayate. Tavat karmani kurvita. When one has, you could say, become free of the agitated desire to perform mundane work. Karma, it's like the desire for karma is like a ghost possessing us. We should realize that since millions of lifetimes, because we've been independent from thinking ourselves separate from God, then we're always running around doing material fruitive activities for our own self-interest. But if I give up family life, I won't be able to work and make a living and maintain myself. But who are we to maintain ourselves? This is false ego. God is the maintainer. Gopitve varanang tata rakshishyatiti vishvaso. Krishna is our only maintainer and guardian. We heard the story of the man who was walking to see his in-laws, and he saw a man weighing on scales sand, and he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm weighing the allotted food for every living entity." He laughed. "You're crazy, you're a madman." "I don't believe you." He said, "No, it's true." He said, "Okay, how much do I have to eat today?" And he showed him, "This pile of sand is for you." He weighed it. He said, "Ha, you're lying. Today I'll fast." "Okay, you'll fast? Okay, let's see." So the man went to his in-laws, potential in-laws, and he wanted to impress them. So he was showing, "I'm such a big pandit, a nice Brahmin." And they said, "Oh, have dinner with us." No, I'm fasting today." But he hadn't eaten that whole day on his journey, so he was really hungry. He thought he would escape being seen and show how great he was. So that night he went to sleep. And during his sleep, his agitation of hunger was like a burning fire within him. Like sometimes we do nirjal for those who follow things like Janmashtami or Nirjala Ekadashi. We fast the whole day from food and water. And at nighttime, sometimes it gets so unbearable that you eat something or you drink something. But he was thinking, I'm gonna show this person. But afterwards, he was so hungry and that fire was so powerful, he thought, who cares? The person's not even here. He doesn't even know. But he was at night. It was like midnight one. He didn't want to embarrass the family, embarrass himself really, because he thought, if I go out now and ask them for food after I told them I'm fasting today, then it's very embarrassing. So he looked around in the room, and in Bengal, they often make yogurt and put it in a room in a cool place, covered. So he saw some huddies, it means like some clay pots, under his bed, like he was on this wooden bed. And he looked under and saw these pots, and he thought, oh, there's some misty dye under the bed. Nice. So he thought, nobody's watching me. When we do sinful activity, we think, like there's a story of the animal that puts its head in the sand, thinks, I'm not looking, no one's looking. No one can see what I'm doing. God has eyes everywhere because everything is part of God. So he took out the dahi hari and he started gobbling it up. Blah, 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 blah. Put 5-6 big mouthfuls in his mouth before he could even like think. When you're so hungry, he thought before anyone comes and catches me. But it wasn't yogurt. It was plaster in the house that was saved there for the construction workers. And he swallowed like 5 or 6 gulps before he could even stop because he was so hungry. Because he had fasted that whole day, the whole way going, the whole journey, and meeting that person, and then coming at night and talking with everyone, and then saying, I'm not going to eat. But he had been given that allotment. If he had eaten with the family, he wouldn't have suffered. Just be humble. He could have eaten with the family, but he was stubborn. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to prove myself against God. God doesn't exist. God's not in control. This is all illusion. But then when he ate all this plaster, it started burning and boiling in his stomach. So he started like running, looking for water in the kitchen, but making so much noise that everyone became afraid. And they thought some thief had entered the house. So the father came out of the household with a big stick. And it was dark. And even when they turned on the light, this person he was like looking like a madman with white stuff all over his face. So he started beating him like he was a ghost or a thief. The person got beat and then ran out of the home and left. So we try to avoid, we don't believe in God as our maintainer and guardian, and we work and we work and we work. I'll do it for myself. God is the maintainer and guardian. Do what you need to do. Don't over endeavor. Tavat karamani kurvita na nirvidyate yavata madkata shravanado vaishradha yavan najayate. As long as we're attached to fruit of activity and we don't have taste for Harikatha, then we are not eligible for the renounced order of life. Madkata shravanado vai. When faith arises in Krishna Katha and taste for it, we like to hear Harikatha, we like to speak, we like to learn verses, then we become qualified for the renounced order of life. So you may say, am I qualified or not? Do you like hearing Harikatha? Do you like reading? Do you like working on Gurudev's books? If you like Harikatha, then you become qualified. Shraddha yavan najayate. And we shouldn't confuse this with inactivity. What is bhakti? Bhakti is rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchate. Service with the senses for the master of the senses. That is bhakti in a pure state of consciousness. Sarva upadi vinirmuktam. Free of all mundane consciousness. I am material, body, man or woman, this or that nationality. No, I am the soul. I am the servant of God. And I am endeavoring to awaken my transcendental relationship with the Lord. That is my ego. Not I and mine in relation to this body and family and world. I and mine in relation to the Lord, my eternal constitutional nature. So when we develop that mood, so sometimes we think, oh, I'm doing so much seva, but I'm not getting any reward. Not getting any remuneration. I'm not getting paid to do it. I'm working. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing seva. But, oh, nobody's paying me anything. So as long as that karma mentality remains, qualification for the renounced order of life is not yet attained. Renounced order of life means surrendered completely to the Lord. He is our maintainer and guardian. We shall serve him, and he shall, as he likes, provide. Completely detached. Not at Muni. Does he have any occupation where he gets paid? He's always a traveling sadhu. What do sadhus do? They stop for as long as it takes to milk a cow. And they beg some cow milk and they give some instruction. Vrindavan Prabhu read a really nice quote the other day. That how do sadhus or traveling mendicants or those in the renounced order not become like a parasite on society? You can tell. What did Srila Prabhupada say?
He said that.
Speak loudly so everyone can hear.
He said that the first duty of someone in the renounced order of life is to make some literary contribution.
Haribo. And then?
Like the Goswamis. And so that they can be so that they can understand something about self-realization and spiritual
people
life.
in general.
Yeah. And then among the other duties, some of the other duties includes having learned discourses between each other in places like Sevakunj, Vrindavan.
Right, here, Sevakunj.
We will-
So you can take for yourself, like last year, you haven't been working, making money, but you've been doing lots of seva. But is Krishna providing? Krishna is providing. I remember for many years in India, I lived with I remember I came to India one year with like $1,000 or something. I turned it all into rupees and gave it to the temple, gave it to the sadhus. Nothing. But everything comes: clothes, toothpaste, toothbrush, place to sleep, prasad, haribo, tickets, travel. Sadhus get to travel more than family people. Why? There's less, binding forces. Free service of Krishna. Anyhow, the importance of Harikatha, whatever stage of life we're at, as we develop taste for Harikatha. Another thing we're talking about is at some point of life we are all meant to enter the renounce order. In childhood, we enter Gurukul and we take discipline of Sri Guru and study and learn. It's called brahmacharya. After which we can decide if we want to enter family life from the age of 25, in what time we perform our fruitive work and we serve and maintain society, our families, after which we enter Vanapras, retired life, and sannyas, full renunciation. Vanapras, the retired life, doesn't mean to going to Cancun or going to Miami and retiring there. Retired life means doing bhajan, not soaking up the sun only. Okay, you can soak up the sun if you're doing bhajan. But Vanapras means going to the forest and doing bhajan, retiring from society and material entanglements. And then sannyas, the full renounce order of life. So from the brahmachari stage, you can go direct to the sannyas stage if renunciation is fully developed in your heart. All right, so Lord Brahma underwent penance for 1,000 celestial years by the calculation of the demigods. So celestial years, not material years, are in this world. He heard this transcendental vibration from the sky and he accepted it as divine. Thus, he controlled his mind and senses, and the penances he executed were a great lesson for the living entities. Thus, he is known as the greatest of all ascetics. The personality of Godhead, being thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, was pleased to manifest his personal abode Vaikuntha, the supreme planet above all others. This transcendental abode of the Lord is adored by all self-realized persons, freed from all kinds of miseries and fear of illusory existence. In that personal abode of the Lord, the material modes of ignorance and passion do not prevail, nor is there any of their influence in goodness. So one thing to note is that what is the power and importance of Harikatha? And why is it important to have faith in Harikatha? Faith gives you the ability to see it, because faith gives you like sight, you could say. Otherwise, it's all of that is there, but you don't have faith, you're blind to it. I don't know. I don't even want to hear about it. Some people are so obstinate. You give them good advice, but they don't even want to hear it. They don't even want to hear it. Why? No faith. So Shraddha Yavan Najayate. When Shraddha awakens, faith awakens in Harikatha, and you hear it, then through that hearing of Harikatha, you perceive the eternal realm, the spiritual realm, the Supreme Lord, his form, and your own spiritual form. Shrute Kshita. Through the process of oral reception, hearing, you can see the Supreme Lord. Just like we're seeing now. We're seeing Vaikuntha right now by hearing the Bhagavatam with faith. What is that realm of Vaikuntha? Because sometimes you can see something but not understand it. So if you understand it, you're seeing it. So that's why through the Bhagavatam, we're hearing about it with faith. Then we can understand it and perceive it. And the Vaishnava Acharya is so merciful. They also give us windows into the spiritual world, like we see so many paintings. And they give us an indication of that realm. So Brahma perceived that abode of the Lord beyond sattva, rajatama, ignorance and passion. People say sattva is good. Goodness is good, right? Obviously, goodness is good, mode of goodness. But when it's on the material platform, it's not. Still your chain. Don't be attached to your bondage, even if they are gold chains. That is sattva gun. It's helpful to lift your consciousness, but ultimately it also must be given up. There is no predominance of the influence of time. So what to speak of the illusory external energy? It cannot enter that region. When we're in the mode of goodness, we're still in a mode of competition with other gunas. I am better than them. Sometimes sattva gun wins, sometimes rajagun wins, sometimes tamagun wins. And the Bhagavad Gita says the three modes of nature are always fighting for supremacy. So therefore, we want to be situated in nirgun tattva. That's called shuddha sattva, pure goodness. And so goodness is helpful and helps us progress. But ultimately, we should not be attached to it and become proud of that. Like we heard the story of the person who every day of his life, he went to Mangalarti. And one day he was going to miss it. He was going to wake up late and someone woke him up. He said, who has woken me up to save me? Going to Mangalarti. It was Kali Maharaj himself saying, why did you wake me up? Oh, because I didn't want you to have any reason to give up your pride and escape my realm. Your whole life you went to Mangalarti, but one day you were going to miss it. And so I woke you up so that you didn't break your record and you wouldn't give up your pride. Because that pride was what's keeping you in my material world. So sattva gun sometimes can lead to pride. But it's still good, but you want to go through sattva gun to shuddha sattva nirgun. There's no influence of time. So that's why sattva, rajatama aren't in the spiritual world, because it leads to anxiety and conflict. Vaikuntha means that place free of anxiety, free of fighting. Everyone is in harmony, serving in divine lila, pastime, divine sport. Without discrimination, both the demigods and the demons worship the Lord as devotees. Wow. The inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planets are described as having a glowing, sky bluish complexion. Their eyes resemble lotus flowers. Their dress is of yellowish color, and their bodily features are very attractive. They are just the age of growing youths. I liked this story Chitananda Prabhu said when we were in the temple in Alachua. He was talking to Christians. Oh, so who is your God? He's an old man with a big beard. They asked him, who is your Krishna? Who is this Krishna? He said, well, who is your God? He's a man in the cloud with an old big beard, right? White beard. So what did he look like when he was young? Everyone was like, if God is old, then was he at some point young? So that is Krishna. Why be old if you're God when you can be eternally youthful? So in Vaikuntha, everyone is eternally youthful. Kishore. They have 4 hands and they are nicely decorated with pearl necklaces with ornamental medallions. And they all appear to be effulgent. Some of them are effulgent like coral and diamonds in complexion and have garlands on their heads, blooming like lotus flowers, and some wear earrings. The Vaikuntha planets are also surrounded by various airplanes, all glowing and brilliantly situated. These airplanes belong to the great Mahatmas or devotees of the Lord. The ladies are as beautiful as lightning. Wow. People are attracted to lightning because it's very sparkling and beautiful and like, wow, it's beautiful. Lightning in a cloud, that's described to be Radha Krishna. The bluish rain cloud, the beautiful effulgence of the lightning, that is Radha Krishna. So when you see lightning in the sky, you can think, oh, Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Everything you see in this world should give you udipan, inspiration about the spiritual world. The ladies are as beautiful as lightning because of their celestial complexions. And all these combined together appear just like the sky decorated with both clouds and lightning. The goddess of fortune in her transcendental form is engaged in the loving service of the Lord's lotus feet. And being moved by the black bees, followers of spring, she is not only engaged in variegated pleasure, service to the Lord, along with her constant companions, but is also engaged in singing the glories of the Lord's activities. So there's more descriptions here. Let's see. We can read through it and then do the sloka. We have time. It's a very interesting dialogue here. So you can see that by his penance, Brahma was blessed by the Lord, and he was purified through that penance, and he was able to then see the spiritual world. Even though he was still situated in the material region, he could see the spiritual world. Lord Brahma saw in the Vaikuntha planets the personality of Godhead, who is the Lord of the entire devotee community. It's another thing we were talking about, right? Devotee communities, there's one group only. There's one God. We always say, Allah, Yahweh, Krishna, Vishnu, there's one God. So if there's one God, there should be also one group within of the devotees of the Lord. Even though there are many groups on the Kanishta neophyte beginner level, we see many groups. As we advance, we see there's one God and there's one people. Vasudeva Kutumbakam. There's one God and there's one people. We all take on different conceptions to help us grow at our level of eligibility on that pathway to the absolute. So we should not show disdain to others, and we should not just attack their faith also, because we should understand that they are on the evolutionary path of consciousness. Okay. The personality of Godhead seen leaning favorably towards his loving servitors, his very sight intoxicating and attractive, appeared to be very much satisfied. We were talking about this yesterday morning. Ashantasya kuta sukam, Bhagavad Gita 266. Without contentment, there can be no happiness. Ashantasya kuta sukam. If you're not content, if you're ashanta, it means always anxious, always restless. Oh, I want this, I want that. Oh, I don't have this, I don't have enough. Sudama, the Brahmin, he had almost nothing, but he was content. He was doing bhajan. But his wife was again and again telling him, go to Krishna. He's very wealthy. Ask him for this, ask him for that. He'll definitely give you something. What is the need? Whatever's my karma will come. I'm content doing bhajan. And he would do bhiksha and do his work, but he was content. Ashantasya kuta sukam. So the Supreme Lord was very satisfied. He had a smiling face decorated with an enchanting reddish hue. He was dressed in yellow robes and wore earrings and a helmet on his head. He had 4 hands, and his chest was marked with the lines of the goddess of fortune. The Lord was seated on his throne and was surrounded by different energies like the 4, the 16, the 5, and the 6 natural opulences. I think that's like a few classes in itself. Right? The 4 energies, the 16 energies, the 5 energies, and the 6 natural opulences, along with other insignificant energies of the temporary character. But he was the factual Supreme Lord enjoying his own abode. Sorry, I'm going to have to read that verse a little bit more. All right, we'll take that. If anyone wants extra credit, homework, 2.9.17 Bhagavatam, you can read this purport and learn about the 5, the 6, the 4, and the other insignificant energies. Haribo. Lord Brahma, thus seeing the personality of Godhead in his fullness, was overwhelmed with joy within his heart. When you see Krishna, when you see God, how can you not be joyful? Whatever anxiety or disturbance, that's why we say do bhajan. Develop relation with Krishna. Whatever problems you have will be easily surmounted by bhajan. Otherwise, you try to fight those problems. It's like one man fighting an army of infinite hordes of demons. How are you going to defeat them? Sit down and meditate on Krishna. Then all those hordes will come around you and they won't be able to touch you, like Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj was constantly in bhajan. So even though they threw him in a pit of snakes, tried to trample him by elephants, threw him over a cliff, put him in boiling oil, exposed him to different harsh environments, hurricanes, he was just sitting doing bhajan, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare, internally with Krishna. And all of that madness around him could not touch him. So therefore, once you see the Lord, all your problems are easily destroyed. We said yesterday, a person who has $1 million has no $5 problems. But then he has bigger problems, $1 million problems. Like a millionaire father, his children, oh, daddy, give me this. Daddy, give me that. Daddy, give me this. Or people tend to live beyond their means. So they're still in debt, or they're still in, mortgage and this and that, and working so hard to maintain their status and their opulence. So therefore, to become satisfied, we should do bhajan and see the Lord. And then all of our problems, $5 problem, $1 million problems, every problem is solved by relationship with Krishna. So he saw the Lord, and his eyes filled with tears of love. He thus bowed down before the Lord. That is the way of the highest perfection of the living, or Paramahamsa. Seeing Brahma present before him, the Lord accepted him as worthy to create living beings, to create the forms of the living entities. Deha. Deha and Dehi. Dehi means the embodied soul, and Deha is the body. So in material existence, the soul becomes embodied in material form. In the spiritual world, the soul and its body and form are non-different. The soul is born from within, a seed that becomes a sprout, that becomes a beautiful form. So in the spiritual world, our form and our soul is one. In the material world, the soul is embodied in a material form. So the Lord saw that he was worthy to create that, to be controlled as he desired, and thus being much satisfied with him, the Lord shook hands with Brahma. The first handshake. And slightly smiling, addressed him thus. You can imagine meeting with God, and he says, I'm happy with you. Give me a handshake. It's beautiful. God invented the handshake. Let's look at the Babasha Ishat Smita Suchisa Gira Priya Priyam Prita Mana Karas Prishan. He held his hand. Who is this? I have another person joining. Haribo. I haven't actually publicized these meetings. Haribo Prabhu Dandavats. So we're just finishing up here, and we're going to learn a verse. So this is the origin of the handshake. Why did Michelangelo paint the Lord reaching out to touch the hand of his first created son being? Handshake. Let's see if you can find that later. I'm sure everyone's seen that. It's in the roof of the Sistine Chapel, correct? Just waiting to touch fingers, but if they get a little closer, then they'll shake hands. Priya Priyam Prita Mana Karas Prisan. You can learn this for today. Priya Priyam Prita Mana Karas Prisam. Priya Priyam. Those you have love for. When you love someone, you want to have some kind of connection with them. Yoga, yukta. So you shake hands. Yes. And Prabhupada says in the purport to the next verse, this is showing Sakyaras, friendship. When Gopakumar went to the spiritual world, Krishna embraced him. Because this is in Braj, the mood of Braj. Are yaar, handshake, gale lagao. Hug. More sweet. Right? Like you meet someone who's your very close friend after a long time, but you're like very grave, so you shake hands, but then come in for a hug. But Brahma is, in this mood of grave. I'm seeing God, and he is Lord of Vaikuntha, so let's shake hands. So the Lord shook hands with Brahma and slightly smiling addressed him thus. We should not think shaking hands is a small thing. There's a whole protocol around shaking hands. And we see societies make very elaborate forms of shaking hands, even when you're growing up with friends. That shows how it's Sakyaras. Friends, do, boom. Handshake. You guys have any handshakes when you're growing up? Tirtha? Yeah. Fist pump. Yeah. So the Lord's the origin of the handshake. The first created being. When they first met God, what did they do? They shook hands. It's the Bhagavatam. Priya Priyam Pritamana Karas Prisan. They held hands. The Lord smiled and said, what did they say? The beautiful personality of God had addressed Lord Brahma. Oh, Brahma, impregnated with the Vedas, I am very much pleased with your long accumulated penance with the desire for creation. It's a very we hear the Vaishnava commentaries on this. Brahma had some desire to create. The Lord flattered him and shook his hand and gave him, like it said, if you have desire for this activity, Vaishnavas will encourage and inspire. Yes, good. So he praised him. You are full of the Vedas. I'm very pleased with your tapa and your desire for creation. Hardly am I pleased with the pseudo mystics. Very interesting. Each of these things, you could talk about for hours, but we're getting to the point of learning the verse in a few minutes. So moving along. I wish you good luck, oh Brahma. It's like a very interesting conversation also. Like when you shake hands with God and then, I wish you good luck, oh Brahma. You may ask of me, the giver of all benediction, all that you may desire. You may know that the ultimate benediction, as the result of all penances, is to see me by realization. Each of these verses is hard to go ahead, but let's try to get to the verse we're going to memorize. I want to read the purport and discuss each one. So gradually we'll go deeper and deeper into the Bhagavatam. The highest perfectional ingenuity is the personal perception of my abodes. And this has been possible because of your submissive attitude in the performance of severe penance according to my order. O sinless Brahma, you may know from me that it was I who first ordered you to undergo penance when you were perplexed in your duty. Such penance is my heart and soul, and therefore penance and I are non-different. Brahmacharyas are described to be the heart of the Lord. Sannyasis are the head. So he's saying, what is the purpose of the brahmachari? Do tapa, penance. That's why he saw so many ashrams in the Himalayas or in upstate New York. So many ashrams around us. Why? Tapa, do penance. Go out in the snow and collect wood for your guru's ashram. Haribo. Tapa, because the brahmachari is at the heart of the Lord. The Lord says, penance is my heart and soul, and therefore penance and I are the same. I create this cosmos by such penance. I maintain it by the same energy, and I withdraw it all by the same energy. Therefore, the potency is in penance only. Lord Brahma said, O personality of Godhead, you are situated in every living entity's heart as the supreme director, and therefore you are aware of all endeavors by your superior intelligence, without any hindrance whatsoever. In spite of that, my Lord, I am praying to you to kindly fulfill my desire. May I please be informed how, in spite of your transcendental form, you assume the mundane form, although you have no such form at all. And please inform me how you, by your own self, manifest different energies for annihilation, generation, acceptance, and maintenance by combination and permutation. O master of all energies, please tell me philosophically all about them. You play like a spider that covers itself by its own energy, and your determination is infallible. So that's why we're reading all this, so that we get an understanding of the context. Now, when we learn the verse, we understand the context. And then when you speak about the verse or give Harikatha about that verse, you can tell that amazing story. How Brahma heard the sound tapa, was looking everywhere, and then he did penance. Then he perceived the spiritual world and all the inhabitants and the glory of that world. And then he saw the form of the Lord and he shook hands. And the Lord addressed him, and then he said, ask what you wish. And he asked him about all this deep knowledge. So that shows when you're given a boon, you should ask for highest transcendental knowledge. What is that highest transcendental knowledge? The knowledge of our loving relationship with Krishna. So that's why Catuh-sloki Bhagavatam we learned. The first verse talks about the nature of the Lord, Sambandha Gyan. Then after that, Abhideya starts. Madchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantastriyamang nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. That is avideya, the process. Harikata, discussion about the Lord. And then deeper and deeper about this mood. And ultimately, prayojan. How jnanitipena bhashvata. The Lord gives us transcendental knowledge. By that, what is real transcendental knowledge? Prem paripati, the process of prem in relationship with the Lord, in divine love. That is the real knowledge. Radhika, Srimati Radhika, is described to be Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Abhistabhirya Eva Nija Rupataya Kalabi, full of all transcendental processes of relationship with the Lord. That is the purest knowledge. So Brahma asked, O master of all energies, please tell me philosophically all about them. You play like a spider that covers itself by its own energy, and your determination is infallible. Please tell me so that I may be taught in the matter by the instruction of the personality of Godhead, and may thus act instrumentally to generate living entities without being conditioned by such activities. O my Lord, the unborn, you have shaken hands with me just as a friend does with a friend, as if equal in position. I shall be engaged in the creation of different types of living entities, and I shall be occupied in your service. I shall have no perturbation, but I pray that all this may not give rise to pride, as if I were the supreme. Later on, when he actually did it, then we know how he stole the calves and cowherd boys, but he didn't understand yet Krishna. So it was part of that Leela to understand Krishna. He thought, is Krishna Bhagavan? My Bhagavan is Narayan, but he is eating with his left hand, not following Vedic injunctions, and he's taking remnants of his friends. Oh, he's walking around naked in the forest, stealing butter. How is that God? You'd understand that Narayan is just the angsa or limb of Krishna. All right. So I think we should continue this tomorrow. It's 8:50. We have to finish by 9. So we'll continue this dialogue. Once again, we haven't gotten to finish our article of the Society of Gauranga. That's why Harikatha is very sweet and endless, and we can continue on and on and on. This is our sadhana. So we're going to go to the verse and we're going to memorize it. And we will continue. So basically, what leads up to the rest of it is they finish this dialogue, and then the Lord gives an introduction to Catuh-sloki. There's a 2-verse introduction before he gets to Catuh-sloki, and then they actually have this discourse. Ahameva samivagre nanyat yat sarasat param pashchadaham yadetatchayo vashisteta sosmaham. So I'm going to try to find where this actual verse is. Text 33. Oh, we're so close. Let's just finish reading. I didn't know we're so close. Okay. Oh, my Lord. Yeah, we just read that. The personality of Godhead said, so these are the 2 verses introducing the topic. Knowledge about me as described in the scriptures is very confidential. It has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. You cannot achieve this knowledge merely through your own speculative endeavor or even hearing about it. It must be with bhakti. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained by me. You may take it up carefully. All of me, namely my actual eternal form and my transcendental existence, color, qualities, and activities, let all be awakened within you by factual realization out of my causeless mercy. O Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself, nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. So that's the first verse of Catuh-sloki Bhagavatam. You have it there with you? What's the verse? Aham evasam evagre, nanyat yat sarasat param, paschadaham yadetatcha, yo vashisyeta sosmiham. Srimad Bhagavatam 2:9-33. Okay? Evasam evagre means certainly nothing existed before me. Aham evasam evagre, nanyat yat sarasat param. I was there even before all of these things, before there was the cause of the material creation even. Paschadaham yadetatcha. After everything disappears, I'm also there. Yo vashisyeta sosmyaham. Whatever remains, it is I. After everything, what remains is myself. Before everything, what is there is myself. And during everything, what is there is according to myself. You found it? Okay, we're going to do it in 2 lines, and we'll do it. It takes about 8 minutes. All together, I'll do it once, then we can all do it together, the first 2 lines. If you look at the Devanagari, it's 2 lines only. Unless there's a very long verse, in the Devanagari, it's 2 parts. Aham evasam evagre nanyat yat sarasat param. 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 In the mind. Feels like you can just sit and meditate on it for an hour, yeah? So we'll have to finish this class and then we can continue. Paschadaham yade tachcha yo vashisyeta sosmyaham. 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 Close your eyes and continue meditating on the same words.
How's the second part?
Yo vashisyeta sosmyaham. Yo vashisyeta sosmyaham. Okay, let's do it all together. Aham evasam evagre nanyat yat sarasat param. Paschadahang yadetascha yo vashisyeta sosmyaham. Aham evasam evagre nanyat yat sarasat param. Paschadahang yadetascha yo vashisyeta sosmyaham. Aham evasam evagre nanyat yat sarasat param. Paschadahang yadetascha yo vashisyeta sosmyaham. Aham evasam evagre nanyat yat sarasat param. Paschadahang yadetascha yo vashisyeta sosmyaham. Aham evasam evagre nanyat yat sarasat param. Paschadahang yadetascha yo vashisyeta sosmyaham. Aham evasam evagre nanyat yat sarasat param. Paschadahang yadetascha yo vashisyeta sosmyaham. Aham evasam evagre nanyat yat sarasat param. Paschadahang yadetascha yo vashisyeta sosmyaham. Aham evasam evagre nanyat yat sarasat param. Paschadahang yadetascha yo vashisyeta sosmyaham. Aham evasam evagre nanyat yat sarasat param. Paschadahang yadetascha yo vashisyeta sosmyaham. Aham evasam evagre nanyat yat sarasat param. Paschadahang yadetascha yo vashisyeta sosmyaham in the mind. At least 5 times. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki Jai, Shri Brahma Madhva Gauriya Sampradaya ki Jai, Jai Shri Radhe Shyam. Thank you everyone for joining. We'll be on again tomorrow. We're going to push the time back a little bit to fit properly with this temple schedule. We were trying at first to do it at like a time that would be compatible with West Coast, East Coast, and other places, but we're here in the temple, so having a good temple schedule. We have morning class already, but anyhow, we're going to be doing this at 7:30 a.m. Eastern time. We'll see how that works. Before that, I have another class, which is more of a japa session and meditation time, morning time. Then 7:30, we'll have one bhajan and class. Every day we're going to be learning verses, but we're not just learning the verses, we're trying to learn the whole spectrum of spiritual knowledge under guidance of Guru and Vaishnavas, so that we can become very deeply situated in our spiritual life, like a rock, bedrock that cannot be shaken by any external circumstance. Like the Himalayas, even though there may be a hurricane, they're unmoved. Like Lord Ram, his Maryad was like a mountain, unshakable. Our spiritual life should become unshakable, By taking shelter of Sastra, this is possible. By Sadhu Sangha Sastra, Jnana Chakshusha, we can develop the eyes of divine knowledge. Thank you all for joining. Hare Krishna. We still haven't been sharing this so much publicly, so we're just starting to do it more as we maintain consistency in this. Hare Krishna.